It's 9 o'clock. It's Saturday morning. Oh yes, it can mean only one thing. It's time for the Monster Magic Saturday Show. Let's do this.
Wake up, it's a beautiful morning. Feel the sun shining for your eyes.
Woohoo! Good morning. It's beginning to warm up a little bit. It's very wet outside, but it's not as freezing cold, which I am really happy about. The big thing is that next weekend it is the Blackpool Magic Convention, and Monster Magic will have its first ever stand at the world's largest magic convention. Very excited. The reason I mention it, though, isn't to plug that. Please come and see me and have a chat. There will be a couple of new releases by Monster or by myself that you can come and have a look at. No pressure to buy, obviously, because that's not the way Monster works. But it means that this show, I'm hoping the show will happen, but it's going to have a slightly different format, because obviously I'll be at Blackpool, and I will need to be at the stand most of the day and so on. So I'm not quite sure what the show next week is going to contain, but it should, fingers crossed, it will include some of the latest and greatest stuff that people have taken to Magic to try and vlog. So without further ado, though, let's get into some reviews. And first up, we've got Double Crossed by Daryl, released via Murphy's. Obviously, Daryl sadly passed away a fair few years ago. Now, he was a great magical thinker, and this is his version of Cards Across, a plot that, as far as I know, appeared in modern card magic in the late 1800s, so it's been around for donkeys. In this version, you ask your spectator to deal out 20 cards into a pile. You then separate them into two piles of 10, and you give one of the piles for your spectator to hold between the palms of their hands, and you show him the faces of the other pile, and he can think of any two cards there that he sees. You then do a little bit of a mime and show that the cards are moving from one pile to the pile into his hands. You then show the cards again, showing the faces, and his cards that he merely thought of have vanished from that pile. He then opens up his hands, spreads through the cards in his hands, and the two cards that he merely thought of are now there. Where this differs from a lot of Cards Across routines is that it is the thought of cards. So sometimes it's just the number of cards that go across. With Daryl's routine, it is the specific cards that go across, and you might notice that this is possibly the origin of Gant Clark's Any Thought Of card to pocket, and it works fairly similar along the same lines. There's a couple of other gaffes involved. Let me show you what you get. Well, I can't show you too much, but you get, in this envelope, you get some specially printed cards, and I can't really, can I show you them? Oh. You can see that they are on red rider back cards, so you will need to use your own red rider bicycle deck for this trick. And you can see there's the cards there, like that. And so on. Nicely printed, and these cards do 90% of the work for you. And the tutorial is all done by Javier Funamaja in Murphy's. It all explained very clearly. It starts off with a very nice performance where you can see exactly what's going on, so you can go and re-watch it, having watched the method, and really see exactly how he's doing everything. And it is really clean, essentially, because they are gimmicks. So 10 of the cards can't be shown, but the other 10 that the spectator has, he can play with those. They are completely legit cards that you put in his hand, so you don't really have to worry too much about audience management from that point of view. You can, of course, include more than just the one participant. You can have two people each choose a card, and then the third person is holding the 10 cards that they vanish to, so you can include a nice little group. So pretty good if you've got a table of people. The only tricky bit is that there is a false count involved, which Javier goes through pretty thoroughly. It's more about the rhythm and the speed of it than any particular sleights, and you're just going to have to sit and practice that, but it's not difficult. I'm not sure it is in fact the easiest way of achieving what the false count does. But if you've got any little bit of knowledge, or if you've got card college 1 or 2, then there'll be other ways that you can do it in there as well if you want to. But it works perfectly fine, and as long as you practice it a little bit, maybe for half an hour or so, you'll have that nailed. And obviously once you've done that bit, you are free. Everything else is going to work automatically, and you've just got to have a little bit of fun with the presentation and the mime. Cards Across, it's been around for well over 100 years. Having a thought of cards go across is really, really powerful. Having the cards in people's hands is great. And if they put the cards in the pocket, you have essentially got a thought of card to pocket. It's really, really nice. And it's the routine that Daryl does that makes it so special. The gimmicks are fairly straightforward, but the way they're used is brilliant. And if you want to do a Cards Across that is easy and is as powerful as any other version, this really is one to go to. A lot of Cards Across use sort of envelopes or trays or things like that. Here you've just got the cards in play. You just add these to the top of any red bicycle deck and you are good to go, and it's easy to carry around. Just add them on mid-set if you want to. It's a really easy, really strong version of Cards Across that I think is a bit of a snip at $24.99. That is Daryl's Double Crossed. Next up, we've got PINcredible by Mr. Pearl. I do have a soft spot for the linking pins. To me, they are very similar to the linking rings, but everything's examinable, and I quite like the fact that you have to do it so close up so people can see what's going on. It feels like really elegant, simple, smooth close-up magic for me. Safety pins are still quite organic, aren't they? I mean, I haven't seen one naturally for quite a while, but the ones you get in here, they're quite big, they're quite nice, they're quite large, a little ornate. That doesn't really matter. You can, in fact, use any pin you like for this. The tutorial starts with some clips of the performance, some very irritating, grating music, so watch out for that. And then, then it's just a teaching of how to do it. It's based on Gene Gordon's Piff Paff Poof from 1935. But if you know anything about the linking pins, or you've been in magic any time, you know that most good magicians have had a go at it, from Jerry Andrus, Marlowe, Slidini, Michael Webber quite recently used the very similar method, which is actually from Han van Samus in his Unsafety Pins, I believe, which was from 1980s, I think. Might be wrong. Half the tutorial is him teaching how to prepare the safety pin. Like I say, it could be any safety pin you pick up. So you can use a nice big one if you're going to do it for a larger group if you want to. And it's very, very simple to do. And then you have some multi-angles of how to perform the routine and the different phases. It is really, really nice, beautiful magic. And you can really play with the illusion of when the pins look like they're linked when they're not linked, and vice versa. Similar that we do with elastic bands and Crazy Man's handcuffs, for example. And there's a nice phase where your participant is actually holding one of the pins as well as they link and unlink, which is great. And obviously you're left, you could just give them the pins at the end of it, and they're completely examinable. They can be examined before and after. They are completely genuine pins. The sleights are well taught. The method is really, really deceptive, and you can just have a lot of fun with it. And I just, they're very easy to carry around. In fact, you don't have to use a pocket in the example. He's just got them pinned into his lapel, ready to go. And these pins are really nice. They're strong, they're a good size, and they look like quality safety pins as opposed to something you've just found at the back of a drawer. I think this is nice. I think if you do like it and you do get it and you play with it, then please go back and look at perhaps Lifesavers by Michael Webber if you can get hold of it, and dig around for extra phases or little touches that you can do. But the tutorial is very, very thorough. Personally, I prefer the linking pins to those little Chinese rings and all that bashing and clashing that goes on. I love the smooth melt throughs that you get with safety pins. There are really only a couple of easy, simple moves to learn, and once you've mastered those, which will probably take a couple of minutes, you've just got to put together a nice little routine. Mr. Pearl shows 3 or 4 different phases, all really good. It's not a card trick, it's easy to carry around, and I think it's really powerful visual magic that will leave, you know, a group of people completely baffled, and it happens right under their noses. It's PINcredible by Mr. Pearl. It's $24.99. And before I forget, we must do the draw for the competition to win Magic Button by Craig Petty.
I just can't get enough. I just can't get enough.
Yes, it's a lot of entries actually of people naming their favourite button. Belly button was obviously very popular. I'm a little bit worried about some of your hygiene. Also, Button Moon cropped up a lot, which was a great program from the childhood. So really enjoyed reading all of those. Great. Here I've got everyone's names. There are about 60 or so, I believe. They've all gone on here. This is actually my tea bag jar. I'll give it a shake. Very professional. Here we go. And the winner is MRG2384. So there you go. I don't know who you are. If you can get in touch, MRG2384, you are the winner of Magic Button by Craig Petty. Next up is Twizted 2.0 by Erick Jones. This is actually a re-release. I think over 10 years ago, Erick Jones brought out Twizted 1.0, and it is a very interesting card gimmick. I think 10 years ago, it was probably more original. Now, I feel I've seen so many gimmicks that work on the basic principle that I'm kind of a little tired of it. But having watched the tutorial and what Erick does with it, I'm kind of sold on it. It isn't my cup of tea, I'll tell you that straight away. But with this, with Twizted 2.0, you can do color changes, transpositions, appearances and vanishes. It is really versatile, and as Erick says, he considers it to be the flipper coin of the card magic world. The gimmicks, so you get 2 gimmicks, in fact. Let me show. I might as well show you both of them, although they're the same. Really nicely made, all handmade by Erick, apparently, and they're very simple. They're easy to handle. You can probably find some way of repairing them now these days. Erick doesn't go into it, but he does go quite a bit into the care of it all. The tutorial's actually split up into 11 different videos, so you can skip through as you wish. Each is only about 10 minutes long. The first couple of videos are a little bit about the history, about the care of the gimmick, and exactly how to operate the gimmick. It's very easy to use. He does suggest that you use a roughing stick or some roughing fluid as well for some of the routines. In fact, most of the routines, if I think about it, just to help you out and make it a lot easier. And if you are going to use a gimmick, then you may as well do that. Why they don't come roughed, I don't know, but it is the sort of thing that wears off anyway, so it is useful. Roughing sticks, you can find them almost everywhere. I would use a roughing stick rather than spray. It's just a lot easier to use and apply, and you can carry it around with you, whereas you sort of spray, you need to have it in an open space. And you get 5 really good dynamite routines with using this gimmick. It is very versatile. They're all quite different. Some are just a quick little color change. If you wanted to produce your bank card or some money, or just change a card with this gimmick, then you can do that. Whilst the color changes are very fun, my favorite routine is Twizted Grasshopper, which is based on a Paul Harris effect called Grasshopper from Super Magic back in 1977. This does it very visually. Basically, you give your participant 2 red kings to hold, and you put their selection between the 2 black kings. It then visibly vanishes from between the 2 black kings, and it appears in between their 2 red kings. It's a really great effect, and at the start of the tutorial, Erick does a nice performance with most of these tricks actually all nicely routined together to show just how much you can do with the gimmick. You can actually get a nice full 5 or 6 minutes out of it. He also teaches the Passless Pass by James Wethington, which is a really nice, simple move and an easy card control, and a lot of fun. It's slightly discrepant, but it works a treat and flies by, and it's very nice that Erick's included that. And the final video is Erick just running through some other ideas that you can possibly do with it. So, I mean, if you've ever wanted to do a really easy card sandwich, some very nice transpositions, or just produce a card from between two other cards, or even some money, or your bank card, or your business card, for example, it's really nice. It is very, very versatile. You are really only limited by your imagination. These kind of gimmicks I'm just not a fan of. It will wear eventually. You do get two, which is great. But if you look at them, look at the construction, you'll see how to repair them, provided you've got your glasses on and you can tie a decent knot. I've never really got on with, I suppose, card gimmicks with moving parts. They just don't suit me for some reason. They feel really odd in my hands. I just, you know, I don't mind a double backer and a double facer and all of those things. But these are really well made and will pass close-up inspection. Even now, looking at it, when I first opened it, I couldn't see what was going on at all, and I knew it had to be something along the lines that it is. Watching Erick's performance at the start has almost persuaded me to maybe give Twizted 2.0 a go. It is definitely really, really good if you like this sort of thing. It is Twizted 2.0 by Erick Jones. And next up, it's That's Fishy by Erick Olson. Doing this as a request. I think it was Kevin King asked me to review That's Fishy. This is a kicker ending to your vanishing bottle routine. Basically, you show you've got a bottle of beer or an empty cola bottle, you put it in a brown bag, you pretend it's disappeared. You actually then pull out a small little glass with a goldfish in it and crumple up the bag. It's a nice idea. I do think that the disappearing bottle really doesn't have a great ending. You sort of scrunch it up and there's a bit of a shock and you throw it away. It's nice that Erick's come up with a little bit of comedy for it. The goldfish is called Realistic. So you get this glass, so it comes full of water, and producing water is no mean feat in the public's eyes. So you do produce a full glass of water with a realistic goldfish. I say realistic, it's not that real. It's realistic enough, I think, for people to know that it's a goldfish and to know that it's not really a goldfish, because you don't really want anyone thinking that you've kept a goldfish trapped in a paper bag with some beer. I wish the glass was a bit stronger. The glass is a bit flimsy. But you can probably change this glass for anything with a reasonably similar mouth size. The actual sort of gimmick that goes with this is really well made and really clever and really easy to use. And perhaps you might come up with other uses for it as well. The vanishing bottle in itself is one of those tricks that's sort of a fun piece of nonsense, and it is strong magic, but it's a sort of throwaway strong magic. It's nice, it's got a kicker ending that is almost equally as strong and equally as throwaway. You know, it's very hard to make a big deal out of it because it's all a bit of a joke. What is nice is listening to Erick talk about it, and he's got, so you can't use carbonated drinks with any effect along these lines, including things like the hydrostatic glass, because of how the gases build up. But he's got a nice tip for how to make it look like it is a carbonated drink. So if your vanishing bottle is perhaps a bottle of Heineken or so on, or a bottle of Bud, then you can make it look like it is actually beer in here, which is a really nice tip that I hadn't heard about or thought about before. Almost, for me, almost worth the $29.99 for that tip. This is exactly the sort of stick that I would do and that I like doing. The vanishing bottle was, in fact, my dad's favourite trick. So I've got a bit of a soft spot for that. I love this nonsense. It's a really simple, easy kicker for your vanishing bottle. The gimmick is really well made, really clever, great thinking, and very easy to use. It is strong magic masquerading as a joke, which is right up my street. I mean, vanishing bottles aren't cheap, and it's usually over very quickly. So I think making it into a bit of a kicker and getting a bigger laugh is a great idea. It's good, honest comedy magic. It is Erick Olsen's That's Fishy for $24.99. Finally, we've got Soulmates by Hyde and Sergey Koller. This is a stage mentalism effect. If you know Hyde and Sergey Koller, they also had their Prestige out recently. This works along similar lines, but the routines are very different. It's basically a pretty versatile stage prop. They give you 3 routines with this. The first one is Cody Fisher's Eat Fart from his comedy book test, which they've got with his blessing, which is a great comedy routine. Feels a bit dated possibly to us magicians, certainly me. I've seen tricks along those lines over the last 5 or 6 years now that I'm quite tired of it, but your lay audience certainly not. They give a couple of other routines. There's an elephant in the room routine, which is fine, don't particularly love it. And then there's a drawing duplication routine, which is pretty smart, uses a little bit of dual reality going on, and that's quite nice and certainly fills a stage. You have 2 people drawing a picture and they match. Let me show you what you get, because this is the bit that we really care about, isn't it? And what you get 2 of the gimmicks, so you can do the drawing duplication, for example, and they're well made and they are strong and they will last as long as you look after them. You don't necessarily need to put them in the plastic sleeves and things like that, but you want to keep it nice and clean, so I would suggest you do. You also get some 2 pens. So these are whiteboards, so you do need to use a whiteboard marker. Don't make that mistake, because you'll mess up your gimmicks. The way these work is really simple, really easy, and it is a good prop for sure, and it is a versatile prop. I just don't like the way it's been made. I mean, it really... So this is that Comex foam board, which dents really easily. You'll soon bash these corners if you're carrying it around, and it feels really light and flimsy. You know, I just wish that had some weight to it. If they made this look more like a genuine whiteboard looks, I would really, really like it. Just don't like the look of it. The design of it, the methods and everything else. The construction, just, it's just too light. I just don't feel comfortable handling it. It feels like a prototype almost. And for the money, it's £170. If you're a professional stage magician, money, really, isn't it? It's not your hobbyist. Well, some hobbyists, I suppose, but for me, it would just be a bigger, better prop. It doesn't look like a genuine whiteboard. It doesn't feel like a genuine whiteboard. And I think, aesthetics and feel when you're performing are really, really important. Its operation is really good and really smooth. There's nothing really to fault it in what it does. It does work. I just don't understand why they've skimped with this foam board. Also means it's slightly more vulnerable in so many ways. Sergey's tutorial is nice and clear, makes the handling and the setup and everything really easy. There's some nice little tips to make everything really, really convincing. It is basically a switching whiteboard, so you can make up your own routines. The 3 that are on the tutorial, none really, really floated my boat. Like I say, I'd probably do Cody Fisher's book test over doing it with this anyway. It's just easier to carry around. If you're going to do the drawing duplication, that's good. But I think it's got some uses for it that Sergey hasn't quite uncovered, and perhaps you will. As long as you treat it well, it will last and it will keep working. That's not a problem. Obviously, all whiteboards, they do get dirty eventually. It's, the ink does sort of settle in, so make sure you use a good whiteboard marker. I just don't like the aesthetic. I don't like the weight of it. I wish it looked more like a whiteboard. It's as simple as that. If you've got a good use for a stage switching device, you can use it to force things as well, I guess. Then good. But for me, I'm just left with this sort of overwhelming sense of disappointment. That is Soulmate by Hyde and Sergey Koller. And that's the end of the show, I'm afraid. If you have enjoyed it and you haven't already, please do subscribe. I'm at 930 subscribers. Just 70 more before I reach the goal of 1,000, the holy grail of YouTube. It is the Blackpool Magic Convention next week, as I say, so the show's going to be slightly different, but hopefully I'll be able to give you a sense of what it would be like if you were genuinely at Blackpool, and maybe encourage you to go next year. It is a lot of fun. So until then, grab some magic, go out and have some fun with the best hobby in the world. Bye-bye.